Hey guys, I am here today with a 12 by 12, a couple of them actually, 12 by 12 process videos for you. I am working on my Grand Teton Yellowstone vacation album, and I've got a couple photos that I'm going to work on right now. These are the two photos. These were taken in Grand Teton National Park just before the Oxbow Bend turnout. So I love this one. It's got a little tiny glimpse of the Snake River in here, and I love these clouds on the mountain, as well as just the beautiful fall colors. And then same thing with this one. We've got the clouds, and it was just absolutely stunning. So I want to go ahead and use these pictures on a 12 by 12 layout. So I debated printing these down to 3 by 4s and using them on a layout, but I think I'm going to leave them as 4 by 6s. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and go is, so I pulled a few papers that I want to use for this. I've got the Simple Stories Autumn Splendor line, and I love this paper. And I also love this one. So I think these will be really pretty layered. I've got some of the solid colors I can pull in here, but then I thought about pulling this paper in too. This is Kaisercraft. This is from their Fallen Leaves collection, and I just love it because I love the words on the background, and I thought that maybe I would mount these on this paper, and then that kind of pulls in some of the black from on this page and on this page. So I don't know, I'm going to play around with it and see what happens. I've also pulled out, this is the Prima Autumn Sunset. So there's some things in here maybe I can use. I may totally go a different route, but this is kind of what I'm leaning to right now. I do have all of the Autumn Splendor ephemera pieces and chipboard and sticker sheets, so I should be able to find some embellishments that will go with this. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started and see what happens. All right guys, so full disclosure, this ends up being one of my favorite layouts in this album so far. I really am pleased with the way that this ended up coming together. So what I'm doing right now is I took that Kaisercraft word paper, and I am taking my two photos, and I'm very conscious of where the words are when I'm putting my photos down, because I want, when I end up trimming this away from the paper, I want a full strip of words across the top and a full strip of words across the bottom. So I'm just making sure that when I lay my photos down and when I cut them out, that's what I'm going to have when I am done. And I like the way that turns out. One thing that I did end up doing was changing out the paper that I was going to use for the background of this layout. My original intention was to use one of those two Simple Stories papers, but they're both very busy, and I didn't feel like that would probably be the best direction to go for the background of this. And I ultimately ended up deciding to use just a plain white piece of cardstock. I went back and forth because I have a hard time mixing whites. And what I mean by that is the white cardstock that I chose is a very stark white. If you'll notice, that piece of Simple Stories paper right there is a cream-based white. And I don't normally like mixing the two different types of whites. But I decided, you know what, let's just go ahead and try it. And hopefully by using some Distress ink, I can tone that down just a little bit. And that's ultimately what ends up happening. And I'm really pleased with the way it turns out. So what I'm doing now is just working on layering my papers. So I've got what will end up being 3 different layers behind my photo. So I've got that Kaisercraft black word one, I've got the red paper, and then I've got that butterfly Simple Stories paper as well. I left that one at a 12 by 12 width intentionally, just because it gives me kind of a base, kind of a jumping off point as a place to add an embellishment cluster. So that's why I left that as a 12 by 12. What I'm doing right now is distressing the edges of that white paper, and I'm doing it very messily because I want it to look distressed. And I'm liking the way that is working so far. At the end of this layout, I end up adding some more Distress ink, and that just ends up tying it all together even more than just the edges do. And I'm really happy with the way it turns out. So I've gone ahead and pulled out a couple tools that I haven't used in a while on this layout. And one of them is this tag maker by We Are Memory Keepers. And I decided to use this big tag as another place to add an embellishment cluster. So that's what I'm working on right now is, trying to come up with where I want my embellishment clusters to be. One of the things that I love to do when I'm creating a 12 by 12 layout is add a bunch of layers behind my photo. And one of the reasons that I like to do that is it gives me places to tuck embellishments into. And I just love that it adds a little bit of extra dimension. Like I said, just little nooks and crannies to kind of tuck embellishments in. So that is why I use so many layers. And you guys will see me do that on pretty much all of my 12 by 12 layouts have a lot of layers. And you'll see, like right there, I've tucked that library card in between those two layers. And I just love the way that looks. So what I'm working on right now is trying to come up with a couple little places for embellishments. So I've got that fall checklist tag, and I've wanted to use that in a couple different places, but it's not really conducive to this album. So it's got like bonfires and apple picking and pumpkin pies and things that don't really go with this album. But I like the big ticket look of it, and I wanted to use it. And it just so happened that this library tag, once I tuck it in there, covers up a lot of those words. So I can still use the ticket, but you don't see the words that don't really apply to this layout. And I just like the way that that really came together. That dried orange and that little bird are from the Simple Stories ephemera pack. And I've been trying to use that little bird for a while now. And I'm so glad he found his way onto this layout because he's just the perfect little touch down there in that corner. So now what I've done is I've moved up to that top right, and I'm using that big tag as a base for some more embellishments up there, but I decided that it needed a little something something, so I pulled this twine out of my stash. I've had this twine for years. It, I believe, came from the Target dollar spot. I don't even know how long ago. One thing that I like to do between all of my embellishment clusters is repeat elements. And I've got the orange going on down in the bottom left. I've got the orange going down on in that tag. I need some orange up there at the top. So I played with some embellishments and they just didn't work. It's not what I needed it up there. So I'm just kind of playing around. I've pulled out that tag. That is actually a leftover scrap that I had from another layout. So I decided that I'm going to tuck that in between those two layers, and I'm going to go ahead and use that. And then I'm also going to put that chipboard butterfly in this layout, or in that cluster as well. So because it's chipboard and I just have a hard time getting chipboard to stick, I'm going to have to add just a little extra glue to the back of that to get it to stick. So now I'm just kind of auditioning some other embellishments just to see what other direction I want to go. And I've pulled out these paper flowers. Now, again, I have had these in my stash for years, but I pulled them out when I started this album and I decided I am going to use them. So I want to use them up on this layout. So I end up using that as another element that replicates throughout these clusters. So I'm going to use that green one there, and then I'm going to go ahead and use another one down there in that bottom left-hand side eventually. So the other tool that I pulled out on this layout is this scallop punch. Now, when I was auditioning pieces for this, I have a ephemera piece that has that scallop border to it, but it didn't work. And that's what prompted me to pull out my punch. And I thought, okay, I love the scalloped edge. The colors didn't work, but let me see what I can come up with. So I've pulled that red butterfly paper out and I've created the scalloped edge, and that is going to be the basis for my third embellishment cluster. So I'm just right now trying to figure out how long I want it to be. And I really like the way that that turned out. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue that down up there. And then I'm going to try and figure out what pieces I want to go up there. So I was able to use that ticket. I've been trying to use that ticket in a couple different spots. And I'm able to use that, and that becomes my orange element. So now I've got orange in all three clusters, and just inking that up. And then I pulled out those flowers, and those are from Pink Fresh Studio. And I love these flowers so much. I've used them on quite a few different layouts, and I've actually had to order a second pack of them. I just love the way that they work. It's kind of a fall color scheme to those flowers, and I just think that they're the perfect touch for a lot of my pages in this album. So I'm going to pull out that paper flower again, and that's going to replicate up there as well. And then I'm going to pull out another one down in the bottom left-hand side as well. And then I'll have orange in all 3 clusters, and I will have those paper flowers in all 3 clusters as well. So I'm just trying to figure out which one I want to go. There's some glittery ones in there, and I didn't think that the glitter went great, so I ended up swapping it out with just a plain one. So now what I'm looking at is creating my title, and where my finger is pointing right there is where my title is going to end up going. So I've pulled out this stamp set real quick. This is the Greater Yellowstone stamp set, and I have used the heck out of this thing. And I've got that little stamp right there that says "When wow is not enough." And I felt like that cluster just needed a little something to complete it, and so I pulled that stamp out, and I end up just stamping it on there, and it ends up being exactly what this needs. So I really like how that turned out, because truly "When wow is not enough" just really applies to this photo, or I'm sorry, this layout. So what I'm going to do now is work on my title, and I've pulled out these stamps from Cocoa Daisy. I think this came with one of my kits. I subscribe to the Cocoa Daisy pocket memory keeping kit for my monthly project life. And so I had these stamps, and I decided to go ahead and use those as my title. So I pulled out that orange distress ink, and I'm going to go ahead and create the title. You're not going to have to watch me do the whole thing, but it does end up saying Oxbow Bend. So I love the way that turned out. I think that the orange is perfect. Now here's where I'm going in with a little bit more distress ink and just lightly distressing this paper with whatever was left over on the sponge. And it really, really works well with this layout. So I've pulled out that Greater Yellowstone stamp set again, and there's a stamp in there that says Grand Teton and one that says National Park, and I'm just adding that to the bottom, and that is actually going to complete this layout. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and I will be back again soon with another layout for you. I believe it will be another 12 by 12. So again, thank you guys. I appreciate you all so much, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.